Hi everyone, welcome back to If My Heart Had Wings, Kotori's Route, episode 15. And it looks like this is where it all comes to an end. So, surprisingly, the father picked up Kotori early, and it's because, well, when Kotori decided that she wanted to go home to Tokyo, the mother was excited and he wants to show Kotori to the mother ASAP. And even though the father tells Kotori that she'll enjoy life better back in Tokyo, she'll find another hobby that's not flying and safer, Aoi doesn't believe so, and he still feels that Kotori wants to fly. And at the same time, the morning glory is about to arrive, and they don't have much time to get ready, since it comes early in the morning and it just disappears shortly after. So while this is happening, Aoi chasing Kotori with his bicycle, Ageha is trying to get the glider from the storage room that's locked, and it looks like Asa and Kanako are bringing in volunteers to help with the glider. So let's see how it all comes together and whether or not Kotori will fly and see the thing that she's been waiting for this last year. So, is that a bicycle? Says Kotori.
お父さん、止めて。
え、なんだって？いい
から止めて、お願い。
バカを言うな。こんなところで一体どうして？
So why do we want to stop? Because we're on the way home.
お父さん。
So I was still trying hard to catch up to the car. Okay, just a little more. I was almost at the top of the hill. And once I get there, a long downhill ride was waiting for me. And the bicycle was in good condition, but my legs are not. So the tailwind that was helping me move was like some sort of miracle. Okay, only a little bit more. Come on. It took more time than I had thought. But if I just made it to the top... Okay, finally. So I reached the top of the hill. I tried to catch my breath as I pedaled across the hilltop. So after about 10 meters or so, I'll be going downhill. I could suddenly see it right before my eyes. And the wide lake and the bridge going right across it. Okay, there it is. So I pick up my pace. And using energy I did not know my body still had a pedal down the hill. I stooped forward and the bicycle accelerated. Downhill. Peering down through the wind was an incredible thrill. I knew if I fell, I'd probably die, but I wasn't scared. And on my way down the hill, I passed a slow-moving car. And this was a car that had passed me going uphill just a few minutes ago. And I keep pedaling, and the bicycle kept accelerating. The bridge begins at the bottom of the hill, and there they are. So it finally makes it to the car. Kotori! Perfect timing. The familiar station wagon passed through an intersection only a mere 30 meters ahead of me. So the final sprint. And the hill ended. I pedal across the flat land after the station wagon. So he calls again, Kotori! I push with every ounce of my body and put my bicycle in front of the station wagon. Okay, so he manages to stop Kotori's dad from driving further. So I could hear the brakes squeal as the car comes to a stop. As soon as I saw it stop, I hit the brakes on my bicycle. And then... my bicycle fell to the ground and I went with it. Okay, did I make it? I laid upon the asphalt, trying to catch my breath.
君大丈夫か
So, I don't think the dad knows that it's Aoi who stopped in front of him. Kotori's father got out of his car. I pulled my body up, struggling to stand on my shaking knees.
ん君は
Wait a minute, it's you. Okay, so he's still trying to catch his breath. So, seeing her face, a feeling of relief came over me that nearly sent me or my knees buckling down again. And her father came over to help me up, but I grabbed the bridge handrail and lifted myself up before he could. Kotori looked at me, completely unable to believe what was right in front of her, so before her eyes.
どうしてここに
So I pulled a crumpled piece of paper that until moments ago was in the shape of an airplane, and showed it to Kotori. So I saw your SOS.
届いたんだ
So it's like, well, Kotori made another paper airplane, and she was trying to do the same trick that she did in the very beginning when she sent a paper airplane down to have someone to help her up. And that was because during that time, her wheelchair had a flat. And now it's like, well, I've been taken away by my family. So Kotori's eyes began to swell with tears. So, Abane-san, please don't take Kotori back home. So how will he respond?
それを言うために追いかけてきたのか
So you came all the way here for this. So please?
言ったはずですこれは私たち家族の問題だと
Well, I heard about your wife, about her collapsing.
それを知っていてまだそんなことを
So why did you come here then, if you know about that? Because I couldn't let this happen to Kotori. You told me on the phone, remember how Kotori lying to you was your own fault? So Kotori doesn't hate you. Even now, she still deeply cares about you. And despite all that, she lied to you. Don't you understand now why she did this? I was basically pleading at this point. But still,
だからこうしてその間違いを正しまた元の家族に戻ろうとしているんじゃないか
so the answer is for her to go home. Do you want her to lie to you again? It's like, well, I'm sure Kotori will try to enjoy the new hobbies per your wish, or try to be comfortable at home per your wish, but in secret, she won't enjoy it. And you want her to be like that? So this paper airplane was an SOS from Kotori. And this was the only way she could ask for help. You have to try to understand what she wants. Well, she never said that by phone or message. And everything Kotori was saying indicated that she was going to go back home. And except for this paper airplane, she couldn't hide her true feelings that would have been betraying herself. And folding this paper airplane was an SOS from Kotori's heart. So Kotori said that if she was able to fly through the morning glory, that she will have to take him back her future.
未来
So whether or not she will think she'll be able to realize her dreams or not in the future. And you said it yourself, didn't you? How she can't have dreams that normal people have.
それは本当のことだ
Yeah, that's the truth. So you can't let her do things that she could do as a normal person, and that includes flying.
あなたにだって分かっているでしょう小鳥が普通の人のように何かをするのがどれほど大変か
So I silently nod. Of course, I know that. I had been beside her all the time.
小鳥が身に余るほどの目標を叶えようとした時、どれほどの困難が待っているか。
So I think the father thinks that, well, Kotori doesn't really like flying. She's trying to achieve something that's not possible for her, and she's going too far.
きっと傷つき、苦しみ、大きな挫折を味わうに決まっている。
Or basically, she's being too ambitious. She's doing something that she knows she can't do, and it's going to cause more problems for her. So the heart-wrenching way in which he spoke made it seem as he might have seen Kotori like that time and time again. No, he had to have seen it. He had seen his daughter struggle to recuperate after the accident. So what does that even mean?
何？
So Kotori isn't afraid of those things at all. And even after the accident, after losing the ability to use her legs, after all that, she still wants to fly. Doesn't that mean anything? Father?
しかしそれは。
Sure, so she's handicapped. She cries easily. She's scared of strange things. If you just look at her, you think she's dangerous. But so she has never turned her back on her goal. She's been courageously pressing forward the entire time. So aren't you just stopping her to prevent your own fears, so your own worries? That's true. So I like how Aoi is able to reason it out. It's like, well, I think you're only doing it because of your own concerns.
Eh?
So that's not the same as loving your daughter. So Kotori interrupted what I was saying, and I snapped back to reality and just shut my mouth. However, her father already knew what I was trying to say. And regardless, what had I said, as honest as it may have been, was surely intensely painful for him to bear. So if you're going to take Kotori back to Tokyo, there's nothing I can do to stop you. And it's a family problem. Kotori is still only a student. She can't live completely separated from her parents. But before that, can you let her fly just once? So let us show you that what we have all been working towards hasn't been for nothing. Please. So will he let up?
お父さん。
So father? Kotori began to get out of the passenger seat by herself. And unable to use her legs, she was hanging onto the door as she began to fall out of the car.
小鳥。
So he ran over and caught his daughter.
君、車椅子を。
Okay, the wheelchair. Okay. I unloaded the wheelchair from the back of the station wagon. So Kotori's father gently sat her into it. And watching him do it, I could tell he was a caring parent. As she was being held in her father's arms, she put a hand to his chest and said,
お父さん、私、本当に飛んだんだよ。
So I admit, I did fly.
空を雲に手が届きそうなくらい高く。
ああ。
すごく気持ちよくて、楽しくて。そこじゃ私は、体が不自由な女の子じゃなくなるの。
でもそれは、たくさんの人たちが小鳥のために手助けをしてくれたからだろ。
Yeah, so it's not like Kotori is special. I decided to break the silence. No one can fly glider by themselves. You need someone to man the winch, someone to hold the wing tips, someone to do maintenance, someone to make it. So many people are needed to make it fly.
ねえお父さん飛ばせて。私飛びたいの。最後に一度だけでいい。そしたらおとなしく家へ帰るから。
So just let me fly this once, and then I'll go home and not complain.
小鳥
So looking at his beloved daughter, Habane-san shook his head.
お父さん
Please!
私今飛ばないと一生自分に嘘をついて暮らしていくことになる。もう二度と自分の翼では飛べなくなっちゃう。この先ずっとただ見上げて暮らすなんて嫌なの。
So her father quietly closed his eyes. So is he going to change his mind? And then quietly,
組み立て急ぐよ。パイロットが到着し次第すぐ飛ぶからね。
so I'm pretty sure the father is going to agree to let Kotori fly this one time. And while that's happening, it looks like Ageha on her end is able to get the glider out from storage, and it looks like they're putting it together.
風強いから気をつけて。翼になるべく正面から風が当たらないようにね。はい。お手伝いの人も気をつけてくださいね。
So be careful. It's pretty rough out there.
人がいっぱいでなんかお祭りみたいだね。
So it looks like Asa and Kanako brought all the people here,
あなたが集めたんでしょ。
including Akari.
だってみんな見たいだろうと思って。あかりちゃんだってそうでしょ。そりゃこんな面白いこと見逃す手はないわ。
So I wonder if Akari knows what the excitement is about.
だよね。
夜食のおにぎりできました。手の空いた人から食べてってください。
梅干し、おかか、塩昆布あります。
俺おっかかい。ホタルは何にする？
じゃあ梅干し。皆さんもどうぞ。夜明けまであとどのくらい？54分。ギリギリね。
Okay, so they have about 54 minutes to get ready and get the glider airborne. And I wonder if they have time. And I wonder what else they need to get this event ready.
パイロットが届けばね。
Oh, so they need Kotori here.
組み立て完了しました。係留しっかりした？
Okay, so more set properly.
よし。じゃあ皆さん集まってください。これから発行手順を説明しますので。いいですか？ゴム柵を引っ張る役の人はあさちゃんチームとよるちゃんチームに分かれてもらいます。私が発行準備開始って言ったらゴム柵を持ってください。その後は一歩ずつあさちゃんよるちゃんと歩幅を合わせて引いていってもらいます。で、グライダーが離陸した後なんですが。
Okay, so what's happening now? So it looks like Ageha's like, well, we're gonna make a big slingshot. One side will have Asa's group, the other side will have yours group, and then at my count, you will both sling the glider and let go of the rubber cord at the same time.
あれは
And it looks like Kotori and Aoi are here as pilots.
アゲハ先輩、葵先輩たち到着しました。
So I unsteadily lowered myself from the back of Anchan's truck. And my knees were still shaking. and the sprint had been used all my energy. I could hardly use my legs. So I have been skipping out on practice way too much.
Aoi!
Hey, so Ageha, could you help get Kotori down?
朝ちゃん、手伝って。はい。
So Anchan had heard the message I left him and was able to bring Kotori and me here in the truck. After all, Kotori's father wasn't exactly ready to allow this. Oh, so thanks for coming, Anchan.
いや、俺こそすぐ電話に出られなくてすまなかったな。
Well, then again, it's early in the morning, so it's not expected that people will answer the phone calls.
おかえりなさい、小鳥先輩。ただいま。ったくもう心配させやがって。ごめんね、みんな。
Well, then again, it's not really Kotori's fault. So after getting into her wheelchair, Kotori came over to me.
足大丈夫？
Yeah, well, they're still a little tired, but it feels that like I can barely move, so I'm going to have to ask you to pilot. I said it half serious and half trying to be motivating. It did manage to move Kotori or make her smile. Okay.
小鳥、ちゃんと元気そうだな。
And Amane's here. Oh, you're looking good.
あまねちゃん。
Kotori's mood suddenly picked up when she saw Amane running towards us waving.
待ってたんだぞ、二人が帰ってくるのを。ごめんね、待たせちゃって。本当だわ。どれだけ私たちがやきもきしたか。
And behind the wry comments of Amane and Yoru were expressions of relief. Hey, so it's looking like a festival or something. So a crowd of people had gathered around our secret base. So about 50 people. Wow, so that's how many people Kanako and Asa called. And I wonder who are in those 50 people. So the crowd was growing more and more excited, yet looked somewhat like a group tour that had gone lost.
かなこさんが声をかけてくれたんです。皆さん、私たちのフライトを見てみたいって。
So this is all thanks to Kanako, who was able to connect with many people.
この人たち全部期待されてますよ、私たち。
Kotori looked at everyone dumbfounded.
はいはい、考えにふけってる時間はないよ。おお、そうだった。
It's like, well, no time to waste. We gotta get going. So Ageha left us with Amane and went off to instruct the crowd. She began to explain all sorts of things to them.
ねえ、滑走路へ行かなくていいの？
Oh yeah, I forgot. Okay, so like, wait, so why are we here? Aren't we supposed to be at the runway? Because that's where we usually lift off, or that's where the glider takes off. So I hadn't told Kotori about the broken winch. So the winch that Toriyoka Sensei broke. So the truth is,
へえ、飛びをかめ、許すまじ。でも、それならどうやって飛ぶの？
So without the winch, how can we fly?
ここから飛ぶんだ。
So we'll do it here then. So this is our temporary runway. Amane spreads her arms out wide.
この丘から。どうやって？
Amane began explaining the takeoff procedures to a confused looking Kotori.
マジなのそれ？ああ、マジだ。
Kotori gave me a wonder where we look. So how can we lift off from here? So don't worry, if Amane says we can do it, we can.
そうね。あまねちゃんがそう言うなら大丈夫よね。
So after all, she's the genius.
二人ともコックピットに乗って。
Okay,
了解。
so preparing our parachutes, we got into the cockpit. So we checked the operation system.
右エルロン OK。左エルロン問題なし。
Okay, so all control surfaces are working, so ailerons, check. And my pre-flight nerves were slowly increasing. And suddenly...
小鳥ちゃん。
Okay, so Hibari's here. So Hibari had come running up to the cockpit.
ひばりね、どうしてここに？
So why are you here? Well, I asked her to come. I wanted her to see what you were doing the entire time.
お姉ちゃんここで見てるから。だから気をつけてね。
So basically, Hibari, don't worry about Kotori. She was doing something that's really significant and meaningful, so we want you to see the end result of Kotori's work. Hibari looked a little pale. She really seemed like she wanted to stop Kotori. And saying nothing, she let her little sister go. So Kotori laughed and gave Hibari a thumbs up.
任せて。私のかっこいいところ見せてあげる。
So don't worry, I'll be okay. Hibari gave a subtle smile to her little sister and walked away from the cockpit. Ageha then came over to talk to us.
発行の手順は天音先輩から聞いたよね。ゴム柵が伸びきったら私が合図を出すからブレーキを離して。そしたら走り出すから。了解。かなり難しい離陸になるけど大丈夫？
Ageha asked in an uneasy tone.
いけると思う。
Okay.
イメージはもうつかめたわ。
So I'll be fine.
わかった。信じてるよ、小鳥。
Okay, so saying that, Ageha closes the canopy. So she flashed me a look. And it seemed as if she was asking me to take care of Kotori should anything happen. And I silently nod in response. So as the dome came down over the cockpit, all the outside noises seemed to drift far away, and we were in a world of our own. So Kotori put out a hand to her chest and took a deep breath. And she seemed nervous.
迎えに来てくれてありがとう。
So I'm happy that you came for me. It was a faint whisper, but I could still hear her. I replied to her in a doubtful tone. So honestly, I don't know if this is going to go okay.
私も。
Well, it's our only chance. So we still didn't have her father's understanding. We were able to explain ourselves and bring her here.
でも。
So Kotori looked up at the sky. Only a little bit more until dawn, the sky slowly brightens, and the silhouette of the giant cloud dimly comes into view.
今しかないから。
So, it's our only chance. You're right. And this was the first time the Morning Glory had appeared in Kazugura in 27 years. And if we miss this chance, who knows when we'll have another one. So, as Ageha started issuing instructions, the crowd of people begin to move. And they broke into two groups and readied the rubber cord. Ageha then tied the cord to the hooks underneath the glider. And the connecting piece was located in the middle of the long rubber cord. And from there, they stretched the cord to the left and the right. So on each side, one led by Asa, the other led by Yoru, numbers of people lined up holding onto it. And the sides were, of course, not stretching out directly left and right of the glider, and they were slight diagonals. And this way, the people pulling on the rubber cord would not be hit by the glider. And the problem is, in order for the glider to fly straight, both sides need to be at the exact same angle and use the exact same force. So Asa and Yoru's positioning were such that their strides would sync. As they were twins, they had almost the exact same physique, even down to breathing. So who's calling Kotori and giving... Oh, so it's Ageha. So Ageha tapped on the canopy. So are you ready? I nodded and Ageha responded with a thumbs up. I could hear cries of good luck from the crowd. So the rubber cord was pulled back one step. One more step. The cord was slowly stretching. And all the while the glider remained firmly planted to the ground. And let's see, so wheel stoppers were in place and the tires were hooked onto them. And when Kotori releases the brake, the tires will release from them and begin to move.
Go!
So 5, 6. Everyone's tension seemed to be increasing just as the rubber cord. Hibari was watching from over by the canopy with a worried look on her face. Well, I would like my dad to see this. And he is here. So I think we were able to explain Kotori's feelings to her father. He hadn't given his blessings, however. So you can see that he's still kind of skeptical about all this. And it's terrifying. And the memories of his daughter falling from the hot air balloon must still haunt him. The wind rolling up the hill became stronger and stronger. It begins to make the wings tremble. The glider was shaking as if it was ready to fly at any moment. To concentrate, hold onto the control stick tightly. So don't think about anything other than flying right now.
了解
And then at the moment, so a single station wagon climbed to the top of the hill. And the car stopped in front of the secret base and a man in a suit climbed out of the driver's side.
Kotori!
Okay, so the father is here. It's like,
お父さん
Saga stopped counting once she saw Kotori's father. And had he come to stop the flight? Well, oddly, he wasn't coming over to the cockpit. He had stopped walking and was watching from a distance. Okay, so he wants to see how this comes out at the end. And Hibari joins him. Ageha threw a confused look over to us. Okay, so I got to do this for everyone.
作準備よし。行け、小鳥。
So Kotori releases the brake, and the cord begins to pull back and the glider begins to move. So it gains speed and runs down the hill. Okay, Kotori! Kotori pulls on the control stick. The wings begin to lift up and the glider takes flight.
おお、
よし行け。
So, will it take off? However, it was only a few meters, but it was just high enough. So Kotori instantly returns the control stick to neutral and then pushes it forward slightly. And the glider begins to fly parallel to the hill, declining almost as if it was slipping.
待機速度は十分。離陸成功だ。
Okay, so it's going fast enough, so it should be able to reach liftoff speed. The glider flew parallel to the hill and it began to pick up speed like it was coasting. And it cut right through the headwind. And this was right in the midst, or the middle of Windmill Hill. A path was made from the wind blowing into the crescent-shaped hill. And the strength of the headwind was enough to lift the glider up. So it looks like they've reached the speed necessary to keep this glider airborne. Okay, so don't get excited yet. So we have pointed the glider downwards in order to pick up speed, and that costs us a lot of altitude. Now we need to get it back up. Otherwise, we'll never get to the top of the clouds. Okay, I get it.
皆さん、急いで移動してください。
So please clear the way.
すぐに戻ってきますからね。ライトをまだもらってない人、取りに来てください。
So what about the lights?
お父さん、ひばりさん。
So you have one too.
ん？
どうしたの、あさちゃん。これ、よかったらどうぞ。サイリウム？
Wait, it's a glow stick.
どうしてこんなものを？
So anyways, the glider had made it down the hill safely, but now was heading towards the lake. And in the pre-dawn darkness, the lake looked like a cavernous darkness. And we flew right over the hole. And we were just high enough. But our altitude wasn't right just yet. Okay, so Kotori, make a U-turn.
了解。
Kotori pulled the control stick sideways. And the glider begins to turn. So watch out for the height loss, speed as well.
分かってる。
And being careful not to lose precious speed, Kotori makes a sharp turn. However, there was still loss.
速度足りるかな。
So is our airspeed good? So thanks to the glide effect, we won't descend that much, I think. So we were above a lake, and in the off chance we do crash, it won't be pretty. But then again, it's possible that they could do a water landing and be okay. So our speed hadn't didn't decrease that much. However, now we had a different tailwind. As our speed decreases, so does our ability to rise.
目標は
Okay, so now to our target. So can't see it yet. So Windmill Hill, which was where we launched from, was now nothing but a silhouette. And we could barely make out the ridge line through the light of the sky that was peeking through, but telling the distance was nearly impossible. And even worse, up, down, left, right, front, back, everywhere was pitch black. We had no sense of direction. So don't get confused by how it looks. Just pay attention to the instruments. Okay? And when the range of sight is limited by the thick fog or clouds, flying by instruments is the only option. Well, I hope they know how to fly by instruments, because it can be hard to do that, and that's why there's another training course for flying on instruments. So if you're relying on poor vision, illusions will cause a loss of feel for your true positioning. However, since Kotori doesn't have much flight experience, she still isn't used to looking at the instruments. Well, maybe Aoi can tell Kotori how to fly. So I supported Kotori, there you go, as we waited for our target to appear. And at that moment, so what happens next?
あれ見て葵
So a small light twinkled within the darkness. As we moved on, we saw a line of lights going up the hill.
ゆかさんたちだ
So everyone who had gathered was holding a light, making a pathway for us. And this was another part of Amane's flight plan. So what are they doing with lights? They're trying to guide Kotori and Aoi. So creating this trail of light was another reason for all the people with lights were assembled. And once the target was determined, Kotori would be able to fly there without the risk of making a mistake. Okay, so they're trying to help them navigate. So the glider was making its way back to Windmill Hill, where it launched off from. So we're nearing the hill. So raise the pitch.
了解
Kotori pulled on the control stick. And as she did, the glider felt as if it was being raised from below.
リフトに乗ったみたい
So they got some lift. Good. The glider begins to ride the lift. And we begin to rise higher and higher, fueled by the strong wind. And this lift was different from a vertical draft. So this when the slope drift was a strong upward sloping wind coming from between the hill and the mountains. And this was the wind that went up from the face of the hill, the wind that powered the windmills, the wind that we felt as we walked down the hill, or on the hill. And the glider continued to accelerate and rise higher. And we went back the many small lights that were down below us. And we couldn't make them out individually, but those were all the lights held one by one by people for us.
光が揺れてる手を振ってくれてるんだ
So watch out, you're going to run into the windmill. So if we follow the trail of lights, we wouldn't hit the windmill. However, who knows what would happen if there was a mistake. So what happens if they're off by a few meters? So riding on the slope lift, the glider slipped past the group of windmills. And then in the blink of an eye, we float over the hill. We begin to rise higher and higher, headed towards the dimly breaking dawn.
近くで見るとすごい迫力だったね。
Wow, that's unbelievable, says Kanako.
あんなにスピードが出ているものなのね。
ちっくしょう、なんかむちゃくちゃかっこよかったんだけど、あいつら。
青兄はいつもかっこいいよ。あーちゃん、これもういいの？
So, are we okay with the lights now?
ありがとう、ホタル。皆さんもご協力ありがとうございました。グライダーは無事離陸に成功しました。ゆかさん、サイリウムありがとうございました。おかげで超助かりました。
役に立ってよかったわ。
でも、なんでこんなにいっぱいサイリウム持ってたんですか？
So, where do you get all these lights?
ゆかさん、某アイドルグループの追っかけやってるから。
コンサートの必需品だからね。1回のコンサートで20本以上使う時もあるし、いつもストックしてあるのよ。
So, I wonder why Yuka needs that many light sticks. Is it because they're one use?
はあ、なるほど。
あれを小鳥が操縦しているのか。
そうみたい。
So, I wonder if the father's still skeptical about Kotori flying.
お父さんとひばりさんもお手伝いしてくださってありがとうございました。
いや、私たちは。
あっちに夜食のおにぎりあるんで、どうぞ食べてってください。
So, in the meantime, there's some refreshments to help you out.
お嬢さん。
お？
小鳥のためにこんなに大勢の人が協力してくださったのですか。
え
あの子を飛ばせてやるために。
え。いやー、それはどうかな。
So, I'm sure it's like, well, I don't think they're all people involved. They're just helping out, and maybe there's some that are here because, well, they're not really part of the soaring club, but they're just helping out for this one occasion.
別に小鳥のためってわけじゃないかも。多分みんな自分がやりたいからやってるんです。
And they did it out of excitement, thanks to Kanako, Yuka, and maybe Asa.
うちの学校、そういう物好き多いし。私だってそうですよ。小鳥が飛ぶところを見たかっただけです。
はあ。
Really?
お父さん言ってましたよね。空を飛んだからなんだと言うんだって。今飛び立っていた2人を見て何も感じませんでしたか？
いや、それは。
Well, I mean that,
感じたと思うわ。じゃあ期待しててください。これからもっとすごいことが起こりますから。
So, this is just the beginning. There will be something even bigger that's coming up. So after flying off high from Windmill Hill, we were able to see our next goal. So Mount Tsukubai. So looming over the school in the distance. So at this altitude, we should be able to make it. So be careful of crosswinds since our current is rough. So Kotori?
了解。
Yeah, right. So what's wrong? Are you tired?
違うよ。さっきの光の中にお父さんもいたのかなって。
So I wonder if my father was one of the people who did the lights. Yeah, I wonder too. So they don't know what's going on down there. But I think he's there. I mean, he was there for the takeoff. And this is why he came right.
そうだといいな。
So, hey, the nose is descending, so be careful. So want to show me what you can do?
この1年で私も成長したんだってところを見せたい。
So Mount Tsukubai was coming closer and closer, and this was the moment of truth of our flight plan. And our next goal is to ride a giant current known as the mountain wave. If we can do that, getting to the top of the clouds should be no problem. And the problem was, how do you ride the mountain wave? And the mountain wave is a wave of air that is created by wind going over a mountain. And they are located fairly high and have a rotor-like turbulence below them. By entering the upper part of the turbulence, it should be possible to get to the mountain wave. And turbulence is incredibly unstable, however, it's a difficult maneuver. So it looks like we're going into this unrehearsed. So it's like, well, there's so many uncertainties right now, and we're trying our best to gain altitude. So realizing what I had said, Kotori braced herself. So originally, we had plans to practice this. And if only that accident hadn't happened.
見て、葵。
So what's happening now? So the eastern sky was becoming brighter and brighter. It would soon be dawn. Okay, let's hurry. And just at the right or wrong time, Tobika Sensei shows up.
消え。
Oh no, this guy.
何うわ、ここで来るのかよ。
貴様ら、こんなところで何をしている？
So what are you doing here?
ですね、先生。これは、
I don't think he cares.
ソアリング部には活動停止を言い渡したはずだぞ。
Well, didn't I say that the soaring club is suspended?
まあそうなんですが、うわ、どうしよう。何？どうしたの？飛岡先生。
雲井、お前、生徒会長のくせにどうして止めない？
So you're not doing your job as a student council president. So why didn't you stop this club? I said no, and
彼らが行っているのはただの部活動です。止める理由がありません。
it's a club. There's no reason to stop it.
何よバカな。こいつらには活動停止を命じてある。
But there was an order to shut this down.
初耳ですが。
Well, I never heard it, so it just came out from your mouth just now.
それに、お言葉ですが、飛岡先生の一存で部活動を制限するような権限はお持ちでなかったと思いますが。
何？
So like how a card's like, well, you don't have authority to shut down a club. And plus, I never heard anything about the club being shut down. It was just the first time from you this
です
morning.
ので、我々生徒会としましてはどうすることもできません。
But I'm teacher. I have higher authority than you.
なら、こいつらが破損させた体育倉庫の鍵はどうなる？
So what about that gym lock?
それも初耳ですが、何か証拠が？
証拠なら、そこにグライダーが。
So the glider is, and I think he's afraid to reveal what he did to the glider.
グライダー？そんなのどこにあるんですか？
ここにはそんなのないよね。
貴様ら。調べればすぐにわかることだ。覚悟しろよ。
自分だってアインチを壊したくせに。
It's like, well, you did do something bad on your own, so you destroyed the winch, and that is also school property.
あれだって調べれば犯人がわかるかもしれないわね。
And I'm sure you'll also be at fault.
私たち処分を受ける覚悟はできてます。だから今日だけは見逃してください。
Well, I wonder if they're able to handle an expulsion from the school.
できるわけないだろう、そんなこと。
そうでもないと思いますよ。何せここには何の証拠もないのですから。
じゃあ一体ここで何をやってるんだ？
So also, what are you doing here then?
みんなで空の観察です。今から面白い雲が見られるそうなんで、先生もご一緒に見ていかれますか？
Well, I think that's a bad idea.
あんまり騒ぐんじゃないぞ。いいな。
Well, fine then.
なんとか追い返したわね。あかりさん、ありがとうございました。
あかりさん、かっこよかったっす。
ついカッとなってしまったわ。
Well, at least Akari defended the soaring clubs. Like, well, teachers don't have authority to shut down clubs because they don't like it or for any reason.
たまにはいいんじゃない？ストレス溜め込むのは体に毒だよ。それより二人は今どこに？
So anyways, where are those two pilots? And where's the glider?
プラン通りならそろそろ山岳波に乗っている頃ですけど。乗ったみたい。
Okay, so are they there yet? Yeah, it does. And suddenly, just as the trembling stopped, the glider began to rise with an almost no recoil at all. And it felt as if gravity had disappeared.
これがベーブリフター。
So as we rode the rotor wind up higher and higher, we reached a part of the sky that seemed like it had a mountain wave. And there was a sudden change from the rough turbulence to a stiffness. It was peaceful, but the altimeter kept on rising. And we rose higher into the sky, almost as if we were no longer flying by wind. So I don't really feel any shaking at all.
怖いくらい静かだわ。
So mountain lift is a strong wind that goes over mountains and is caused by the up and down rippling of winds. And it stretches a few times the size of a mountain itself. And the world record for the highest flying glider, which made it to the stratosphere, used a mountain lift. So Mount Tsukubai isn't a particularly large mountain, but if we can get to an altitude of 2,000 meters, it'll be enough. And that's the altitude for where the morning glory is. However, there's no guarantee that there will be a mountain wave. The condition is entirely dependent on the wind that it's blowing. Today, though, I was confident that it would appear. So it was related to the way Amane derived that morning glory would appear in Kazagura. Mountain waves are known to appear along with strange cloud formations. So her hypothesis is that the morning glory is created by the mountain waves from Mount Tsukubai, which basically means when morning glory appears, there's no chance that there wouldn't be a mountain wave or mountain waves. So the pre-dawn sky, while still dark, was beginning to show some strange colors as the light comes through. And before we knew it, we reached our target altitude. So what's the result? So below us, we could see the silhouette of the cloud passage. We spent a moment staring in amazement at its massive size. Wow! So this wasn't the mistake that we saw a year ago. This was the real thing. And at that moment, the rays of light began to come from the east. Ooh, it's dawn. And the morning sun broke through the darkness and began to light up the sky. So the light began to color the view. The giant cloud began to sparkle. Kotori whispered with a sense of amazement. Yeah, it is amazing. I didn't know what else to say. And it looks like they made it. I could feel tears beginning to form in my eyes. It wasn't a feeling of joy or sorrow or even fun. A more fundamental feeling began to fill my heart, and my tears began to overflow. I was overwhelmed and for a moment at a complete loss of words.
行くよ葵
Okay. So Kotori pulled down on the control stick, leaving the wave lift and aiming us at the passage of clouds. It looks amazing even from the ground.
見てるわよ姉さんすごいね綺麗だね神々しいって言葉がぴったりくるわねあれが望月先輩がずっと追い続けていたそうみたい追いかけちゃう気持ちわかるかも
おお、何あれ、マジすげえ。
お兄たちもうあそこまで飛んだのかな
あれがイスカが行きたがってた空なんだな。
So that was what Iska wanted to fly through the entire time.
ああ、葵くんたちがイスカの夢をあそこまで運んでくれた。私にはできなかったことをしてくれた。
いい後輩を持ったな、俺たち。
ああ、綺麗ね。
ああ、しかし何なんだあの雲は。まるで奇跡でも見ているようだ。
モーニンググローリーです。
モーニンググローリー。
風ヶ浦の空に数十年に一度現れる不思議な雲。私も本物を見たのは初めてです。
小鳥はあの雲を近くで見たいからグライダーで飛んでいったんですか？
近くで見る？いえいえ、そうじゃないですよ。
ん？
飛ぶんです。あの上を。あの雲の回廊を渡るために必死で登っていったんです。
あの上を渡る？
はい。
信じられん。
多分今頃到着してるはずですよ。
Okay, so I'm pretty sure they should be there by now.
今あそこに小鳥が。
So the glider had gone through the passage of clouds. It sparkled in an array of clouds from the gradients of light that the dawn was bringing. It was completely surreal. And for a moment, almost as if we had forgotten how to speak, we did nothing but let our sighs of admiration. Wow.
私たちついにやったんだね。
Yeah, we did. And I thought I would have been happier. However, being here, that was not what I felt. Overwhelmed by its majesty, I felt nothing but gratitude towards this miracle. And the glider held its altitude and passed through the clouds. And the path of clouds is created by rolling air currents. And thanks to those rolling currents, even an empowered glider can maintain flight in it for long periods of time. And Kotori flipped on the radio.
アゲハ、聞こえる？
So can you hear me?
小鳥？聞こえてるよ。ちょっと電波が悪いみたいだけど。そっちどう？今どのあたり？乗ったよ、モーニンググローリーに。今その上を渡ってるところ。よし、みんな、小鳥たち今あの上にいるって。
So everyone, they did it. And through the radio, we can hear everyone's cheers.
どんな気分？なんて言ったらいいかわからない。奇跡の中にいる気分。葵？ねえ、葵はどうなの？
So how about you, Aoi? It feels like I've died and gone to heaven.
こらこら、縁起のないこと言うな。
Come on, say something better. Well, really though, that's what it feels like. I can't believe this is really happening.
下から見てもすごいんだもん。上からだともっとすごいんでしょうね。ゆっくり楽しんできてよ。ありがとう、アゲハ。みんなもありがとう。土産話期待してるからね。通信終わり。
So as soon as the radio was turned off, the cockpit went silent. And at that moment, so what happened? The sun began peaking above the horizon, its rays lighting up the sky. And as it rose, the top of the clouds began to have a golden glow.
すごい。
Wow!
こんなにすごい場所だなんて思ってなかった。想像を絶するってこういうことを言うのね。
So no one could imagine this. This view is outstanding.
ねえ、葵。
Yes?
ここまで連れてきてくれてありがとう。この場所へ来られたことはきっと一生の誇りだわ。
So don't be ridiculous. You made it here yourself.
でも葵がいなきゃ無理だった。みんなも。
So do you find it? So what you had lost?
多分。
Well, that's good.
私の人生も捨てたもんじゃないね。
So our glider continued to fly on and on through that dreamlike scenery. And on until the morning sun dissolved the illusion. Okay, so this looks like the credits for If My Heart Wings, and I'm going to go ahead and skip this. So I'll be back in a moment, so hold on. So do you think you can wait over there? Okay, so I'm going to leave the rest to the next episode. So this is the epilogue for Kotori's Route, and I'm sure I can conclude this in the next episode. So I know I stretched this episode a little bit too much because this was kind of like the best moment in Kotori's Route. The fact that Kotori was able to achieve the thing that she wanted from the very beginning, despite all those setbacks. So the father trying to tell Kotori to do something else for her safety, and Tobirga Sensei shutting down the soaring club. And I kind of like how Akari fought back, it's like, well, the teacher doesn't have the right to shut down a club. And Akari's like, well, I don't see anything wrong about this club anyways. And I kind of like how at the end, the father of Kotori saw why Kotori would do all this, and it's because she wanted to see something that's so rare that happens once in a few decades. So it justifies why she would be willing to first get the glider fixed, and then practice flying, and then go all the way up into the sky, despite her being disabled in the legs and the hot air balloon injury. So we'll see how all this ends now that they've accomplished the one big goal that they were looking for from the very beginning. Or more like from episode 20 when Kotori found a photo that convinced Akari why the Soaring Club should exist. So with that in mind, I'll see you in the next episode.